right, so this is the answer key for lesson 9-6, worksheet number 1. All right, so we're working on the quadratic formula. So on this first guy here, this is going to be A is 2, B is -5, and C is -18 because it was already set equal to 0. So now I'm going to do my quadratic formula. Negative B, or opposite of B, will be 5 plus or minus the square root of B squared, -5 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C is -18, all over 2A, or 2 times 2. All right, so working the calculator here a little bit. I'm going to work the inside here first. -5 squared minus 4 times 2 times -18. All right, and so when I did that, I got 5 plus or minus the square root of 169 divided by 4. Now, hopefully we know, and if you don't know, you stuck in your calculator, the square root of 169 is 13. So x equals plus or minus x equals 5 plus or minus 13 divided by 4. All right, so now break that up into your two individual parts here. So we get 5 plus 13, and then we're going to divide that by 4. And then we're going to get 5 minus 13 and divide that by 4. So on this guy here, I get 18/4, which reduces to 9/2, or you could have 4.5, 4.5, something along those lines. Okay, so that would be your first answer there. Your second answer, when you subtract, you get -8 divided by 4, so we end up with -2. Okay, on the second one here, again, this has got to be set equal to 0, so I'm going to be adding the 11 over here to where the 8 is. So I've got 10x squared plus 12x plus 3 equals 0. So now I've got A is 10, B is 12, and C is 3. Okay, so x equals -12 plus or minus b squared, which is 12 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 10, times C, which is 3, all divided by 2A, or 2 times 10. All right, so again, I'm going to work the inside there first. 12 squared minus 4 times 10 times 3. Okay, and so when I do that, I've got -12 plus or minus the square root of 24 divided by 20. Okay, now unfortunately we don't know the square root of 24, so we do need to either type this part into our calculator or break it down. So like 4 and 6, 2 and 2, 2 and 3. So the 2's pair up and move out. Okay, so I've got x equals -12 plus or minus 2's paired up and moved out. I still have 2 times 3, or 6, left over on the inside, over 20. Now, like we talked about in the video notes here, if all 3 outside numbers can be reduced, we need to do that. Again, we don't touch the inside of the square root, just the outsides, okay? So I can take a 2 out of all of those. So I'll end up with a -6. Okay, so if I cut this down, I'm going to get a -6. If I cut this down, I'm going to put a 1. You don't have to put the 1 there in front. If you just put square root of 6, that's the same thing. It's up to you. And then if I cut this by 2, I'd have a 10 here. Okay, so now this is your exact solution. Okay, exact. Now, anytime we have a square root left, that means we also have an approximate solution, or your decimals. So now we're going to go ahead and break this up into your two parts here. We're going to get the -6 plus √6, divide that by 10, and then -6 minus √6 divided by 10. So go ahead and stick that on your calculator. And then divide by 10. Remember to double arrow it if you got that calculator we had in class. So I've got x equals -0. It's 35, but it says nearest tenth, so we've got 4 on this one. And then I've got -6 minus the square root of 6, and I'm going to divide that by 10. And when I hit the double arrow on that one, I end up with -0.8. Okay, so these guys right here would be your approximate solutions. Okay. All right, go down to number 3 here. Okay, again, we have to have it set equal to 0. So I've got 3n squared plus 10 equals 0. Now in this case, this is your A, there's no B value, and then this is C because B's missing. So B would technically equal 0 on this guy. So x equals, my B value is 0, plus or minus 0 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 3, times C, which is 10, all over 2 times my A value, which is 3. Okay, so now when I'm working on this one here, when I work the inside of this guy right here, I'm going to end up with a negative 120. So when I put that in my calculator, I got a negative number. So right now I have 0 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 120 over 6. Now keep in mind, anytime you've, oops, wrong one. Anytime you've got a negative number on the inside there, that's no good, okay? You can't have it. So once you've got a negative number on the inside of that square root, it's a no solution, and that's your answer. Move on. All right, so let's go ahead and set this one equal to 0. So I've got 2a squared minus 8a plus 8 equals 0. Again, I'm just moving that 8 over. Okay, so now I'm going to plug it into my formula. I've got negative, or the opposite of b, so I've got 8 plus or minus negative 8 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a, or 2 times 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and work the inside there. So we've got negative 8 squared minus 4 times 2 times 8. So I actually end up with a 0. So I've got 8 plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 4. So now we know 0 is not going to really go anywhere here. So I am looking at what is 8 divided by 4. So x will just equal 2 in this case. And that will be your only answer for this one. All right, going over the back page. Oh, it won't be a day unless we have a word problem. Okay, so a football player punts a ball. The path of the ball is modeled by the following thing, where x is the horizontal distance, and then the y is the height, okay? So here, I'm going to try to draw a picture out here for you a little bit to help you understand this problem a little bit. So here's my xy axis, okay? So this person's punting a ball. Now, I actually know it starts 2.5 feet off ground because that's your C value there, okay? And it comes up, and the question is, when is it going to hit the ground, okay? But the question is not, I guess, when, but how far. So we are looking from here to here. How far was your kick? How far did you kick that ball? That's what we are trying to find here, okay? All right. So it says, how far from the football player will the ball land on the ground? Hint, set y equal to 0, because again, it's hitting the ground, so ground is 0. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and put 0 in here for y. So 0 equals negative 0.004 x squared plus x plus 2.5. All right. So now I've got my A, my B value is going to be the 1 here in front. There's a 1, and this is my C value. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times A times C, which is 2.5. All over 2 times A. Okay. All right, so let's start with inside your square root there first. Okay, and when I did it, I ended up with negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1.04 over, and this will be negative 0.008. Okay? All right, so now when you have square roots of decimals, you don't mess with trying to break anything down or anything like that. Just take the square root of 1.04 in your calculator. Okay, so x equals negative 1 plus or minus. I'm going to go ahead and round it to 1.02 just till we kind of work it out here a little bit and then get your bottom here. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and break it up into our 2 individual parts. Okay, so I have got negative 1 plus 1.02. And I'm going to divide it by 0.008. And then I've got negative 1 minus 1.02. And I'm going to divide that by the negative 0.008. Okay. So on the top there, ends up being 0.02 divided by negative 0.008. So I end up with a negative 2.5. Pretty good chance that's going to be a bad answer because we can't go negative distance. I mean, I guess you could kick it back behind your head, but that's not very good. All right, and then on the back side there, or on the second part there, we've got 2.02 divided by 0.008, and I got 252 0.5. That's a pretty good kick. And is this in feet? What is this in? Yeah, in feet. So they kicked the football 252.5 feet. This guy's out because you can't go negative. All right, the next part here is asking for the discriminant. Again, it's still got to be set equal to 0, which this is. So this would be your A. This is B. Your C value is equal to 0 because it's missing, okay? Now remember, on the discriminant, we're just looking inside the square root. We're not having to look at anything else but the square root. So B squared minus 4AC is all we got to work with here. So I've got negative 10 squared minus 4 times A times C. All right, so when I put that in my calculator, I end up with 100. And that, since it's positive, means I'm going to have 2 solutions. So it's going to cross the x-axis 2 times. So 2 solutions. And that's what they're looking for here. They want you to find the discriminant and then talk about how many solutions. Just a heads up, you don't need to worry about types of solutions. I should have taken that out. We don't mess with that. All right. Okay, on this one, so we got A, B, and C. So again, we're doing B squared minus 4AC. So 6 squared minus 4 times 9 times 1. All right, so when I do that, I'm going to end up with a 0. And so since I have 0, that's going to give me 1 solution. Okay, so 0 inside the square root's okay because you're going to have the numbers. Like, think about this for a second. If you got a 0 on the inside right here, right? If this is 0, you still have these outside numbers you're dividing. That's how we're getting 1 answer. All right, number 8. Okay, again, we're going to set equals 0. It doesn't really matter what you move here. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and move the 9 over this way. But again, it doesn't really matter. So we get 9k squared plus 9k minus 10. So you get A, B, and C. Now, if you did it the other way and had a -9, -9, and then a positive 10, you should still end up with the same answer. So now B squared, so 9 squared minus 4 times A times C. All right, so let me type that in real quick here. Okay, and so when I get that all typed in here, I'm getting 441. And since it's a positive, that's going to give me 2 solutions here. Okay. All right, number 9. Doesn't really matter, again, what you're moving. I'm just going to move the 8. So I'm going to get a negative 10x squared, a plus 6x, and a, oh, how about a minus 8? A minus 8 equals 0. So again, here's A, B, and C. So B squared, so 6 squared minus 4 times A, which is negative 10, times C, which is negative 8. All right, and I'm going to type that in. So 36, 4. All right, and I got negative 284 there. And so since it's a negative, we know that that's no good. So we're going to get a no solutions. Okay, and that concludes this answer key.